Imagine a family so powerful they have wings named after them at the Louvre, the Met, and Harvard. A dynasty dripping in old money, rubbing elbows with royalty, and hiding behind a gold-plated image of philanthropy. Now imagine that almost every single dollar funding that prestige was soaked in the blood of over 500,000 people. This isn't a cartel operating out of a hidden jungle compound. This is a family operating out of a pristine, glass-walled boardroom in Connecticut. They didn't use guns to build their empire. They used prescription pads, an army of smiling sales representatives, and a complex web of financial loopholes that would make Wall Street's worst blush. This is the story of the Sacklers, the architects of the modern opioid crisis, and how they pulled off the most ruthless corporate cover-up in American history, walking away with $10 billion while a nation burned. To understand how a seemingly legitimate medical company turned into a legal drug cartel, you have to go back to the patriarch, Arthur Sackler. Arthur wasn't just a doctor. He was a ruthless marketing genius who fundamentally rewired the pharmaceutical industry. Before Arthur, selling drugs was a dry, scientific affair focused strictly on clinical trials. Arthur realized that to sell medicine at scale, you didn't just need good science, you needed exceptional advertising. He pioneered the practice of marketing directly to doctors, creating glossy ads, paying influential physicians to endorse products, and even secretly buying a medical journal so he could publish favorable articles about his own drugs without anyone knowing. He built the ultimate blueprint for medical manipulation, a blueprint his family would weaponize to catastrophic effect. When Arthur's nephews and brothers took full control of the family business, Purdue Pharma, they faced a massive financial problem. Their biggest moneymaker, a cancer painkiller, was losing its exclusive patent. They needed a new cash cow fast. Enter OxyContin. OxyContin was essentially oxycodone, a powerful chemical cousin to heroin, wrapped in a special coating supposedly designed to release the drug slowly over 12 hours. The Sacklers knew opioids were highly addictive, and historically, doctors were terrified to prescribe them for anything other than terminal cancer or severe trauma. The Sacklers needed to change that ingrained medical culture overnight. They needed doctors to feel comfortable handing out OxyContin for everyday backaches, sports injuries, and routine wisdom teeth removal. Purdue launched the most aggressive, well-funded marketing campaign in the history of modern medicine. They deployed thousands of slick sales reps, armed with catered lunches, luxury vacations, and lucrative speaking fees, to relentlessly bombard doctors' offices across the country. But the real masterstroke, the catastrophic lie that built a $10 billion fortune, was a single, entirely fabricated statistic. Purdue's reps were systematically trained to look doctors in the eye and tell them that the addiction rate for OxyContin was less than 1%. It was a completely baseless claim, deliberately twisted from a tiny, unscientific letter published in a medical journal back in 1980. Purdue repeated it so often and so loudly that it became accepted medical dogma. They even secured a highly unusual custom label from the FDA claiming the drug's delayed-release mechanism actually reduced its abuse liability. The money flooded into the Sackler bank accounts like a tidal wave. By the early 2000s, OxyContin was generating billions of dollars in revenue. But the 12-hour delayed release was a deadly myth. For a massive percentage of patients, the drug wore off after just 6 or 8 hours, sending them into agonizing, desperate withdrawal. Instead of admitting the fundamental flaw in their blockbuster product, Richard Sackler and the Purdue executives told their sales force to instruct doctors to prescribe much stronger doses. When patients inevitably figured out they could crush the pills to snort or inject them, bypassing the time-release coating and unleashing the full, heroin-like high all at once, the bodies started piling up. Pharmacies in small Appalachian towns were ordering millions of pills for populations of just a few hundred people. The crisis was absolutely undeniable. Behind the closed doors of their executive boardroom, the Sacklers were not oblivious. They were cold and calculating. Internal company emails, dragged into the light through relentless litigation, revealed a chilling corporate callousness. When confronted with the skyrocketing overdose rates and the terrifying rise in addiction, Richard Sackler didn't halt production or recall the drug. Instead, he proposed a brutal, calculated public relations strategy: blame the victims entirely. He wrote that they needed to hammer the abusers in every possible way, calling them the culprits and the problem, maliciously framing the crisis not as a failure of their highly addictive drug, but as a severe moral failing of reckless street addicts. Purdue executives received detailed reports of corrupt doctors running illegal pill mills, handing out prescriptions for cash, and did absolutely nothing to stop the flow. As the media heat turned up and devastating lawsuits began to trickle in, the Sacklers realized the party was eventually going to end. So they initiated the second, arguably most evil phase of their master plan: the extraction. Between 2008 and 2017, as the opioid crisis reached apocalyptic levels across America, the Sackler family systematically bled Purdue Pharma dry. They aggressively funneled more than $10 billion out of the company's coffers and into a complex, impenetrable labyrinth of offshore bank accounts, untraceable shell companies, and private family trusts scattered around the globe. They knew the corporate ship was going to sink under the weight of the incoming lawsuits, so they deliberately loaded all the treasure onto their private lifeboats and severed the ropes. When the avalanche of litigation hit, thousands of lawsuits from states, cities, and tribes demanding justice, Purdue Pharma filed for bankruptcy. But this was a calculated, strategic bankruptcy. The company was bankrupt, but the family behind it was sitting on a dragon's hoard of hidden cash. The Sacklers used the corporate bankruptcy process to shield themselves from personal liability. They offered the victims a devil bargain. They would give up ownership of the company and pay a few $1 billion, but in exchange, they demanded sweeping, permanent immunity from any future civil opioid lawsuits against them personally. It was a stunning masterclass in exploiting the justice system. The people who lost children to OxyContin fought over scraps of a bankrupt corporation, while the crisis architects watched from their mansions, fortunes untouched. No Sackler has seen the inside of a jail cell for the graves their product dug. Today, museums are taking their names off walls. The prestige they curated is gone, replaced by a legacy of mass death. This story is a terrifying window into how the ultra-wealthy engineer disasters, blame victims, siphon profits, and use the law as a shield. It proves the most dangerous cartels wear tailored suits and operate within a system built to protect them.